Welcome to the Tara Palmeri Show. Ghislaine Maxwell is getting the royal treatment at Club Fed, the federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas, that she was relocated to after she sat for hours of testimony with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Remember when she cleared President Trump of having any wrongdoing associated with Jeffrey Epstein and then got moved from a high security prison in Florida to a camp near a residential neighborhood, even though she's a registered sex offender? Right. Well, she's pissed off a lot of her fellow prisoners. They're resentful, and they say security measures have changed and that Maxwell seems to enjoy special privileges. She's reportedly in great spirits, sporting a new bob and dye job, eating vegetarian meals, and bossing other inmates around. Some have even been warned that if they talk to the press, they could be kicked out and put in a worse prison. The Wall Street Journal sources say that during a recent security threat, special precautions were taken just to protect Ghislaine. And then the entire prison was locked down on another occasion so that she could have a secretive visit with guests in the chapel. I break it all down with Joy Reid, why I think Ghislaine Maxwell is being protected, and how this all might tie back to Diddy. Take a listen.
Tara Palmeri, who is one of the most read in reporters and journalists on this case. She's the host of the Tara Palmeri podcast. Tara, it is great to see you. What do you make of this? Well, let's start with the weird meeting. This weird meeting in the chapel. Do you have any reporting that can sort of tease that out a little bit, what that meeting might have been about?
Joy, I don't have any reporting, but I have to think that from her demeanor as reported by the Wall Street Journal, which has really been after this, I was so impressed to see that they, sent out requests to literally almost every inmate to describe what it was like to be with Ghislaine Maxwell, to hear that she's getting a short bob haircut with a dye, and to hear that she could tell inmates in common spaces, you can't be near me, and guards would almost act like security for her. The way they protect her above all the others, it suggests to me that there is some sort of understanding that this person needs to be kept alive, that this person needs to be protected for a reason, that there is some sort of outcome to come with all of this. I mean, it's a known fact that child molesters do not do well in prison. They do not do well. They die frequently. They're called komos, and they are literally targeted because of the depravity of this crime and how severe it is. And she's basically in Club Fed, where a lot of these people are fraudsters, right? But you don't find murderers in this facility. These are open rooms. Their cells are not like locked. They can walk around. They live near residents in a residential community. She's a sex offender. People who do the crimes that she commits, they spend 100 years in prison. This is not normal. And yet they're ushering her to private meetings. She's being treated like she is the queen of this camp. I mean, she's being fed vegetarian food and giving it out to people. Now, this just suggests to me, when you factor in the president's comments, oh, Ghislaine, remembering her like they were old pals, which they were, by the way. I mean, she met him when she was working for her father, Robert Maxwell, selling corporate gifts when she was as young as like 20 years old. And her father and Trump were friends. He used to go on her father's yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named after her. So they have a long-standing relationship, these two. And, he said he was looking into a pardon. He's normalizing the situation. And Joy, if I could make a prediction, and this is not based in any reporting, but it's just a gut feeling based on the fact that Trump also mentioned Diddy in the same comments.
He did.
I think that he will pardon Diddy, Maxwell, and George Santos in one fell swoop, and it will blur the moral lines, cause so much outrage that people are just overwhelmed by it. And it gives him a device to do something that is morally reprehensible. And there will just be so many, but it will be confusing at the same time because, some would argue George Santos, he committed some campaign violations, which is fraud, but to pardon him in the same breath as a sex offender and Diddy, who is also accused of sex crimes, it just seems like he's laying it out there. Like he's just showing us what his strategy is.
I agree with you. I've been thinking for the longest time that he's going to pardon Diddy, because also, by the way, Diddy's probably written him a check. Let's just be clear, and the Maxwells have the money to write him a check too. And Donald Trump is nothing if not an entrepreneur. And so I'm assuming that these pardons are coming. But for the way that she's being treated, the way you've described the way she's being treated, it sounds a lot like what I've read about how Jeffrey Epstein was treated when he was incarcerated in Florida. I mean, he was getting to leave that prison every day, go to his office, accompanied by Florida Department of Law Enforcement officers who were treating him like they were his security. And then he would come back and sleep in the prison, but he was being allowed to come and go as he pleased, even though he's a literal child molester.
In fact, he reportedly raped a girl during that period of time when police were on the other side of the door. I mean, that is how accommodating they were to him. He was walking around with an ankle bracelet in Palm Beach. He spent 13 months in prison for a state crime of soliciting a minor for prostitution. The state of Florida should be ashamed that that was even a crime, that you could actually solicit a minor for prostitution. That is not, you can't, that would make a minor a prostitute. A minor cannot be a prostitute. And it's appalling. If you really dig into the state case, I have a podcast called Broken, Jeffrey Epstein, and I reported on it with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, but I really dug into this case. And when it was presented before the grand jury in the state case, they literally told the grand jury, the state attorney and his deputy, they told the grand jury there are no victims here, and showed them the MySpace pages of these girls. I mean, this was to sort of suggest that they're promiscuous and they had it coming. This is the state of mind. This is the layer of protection around Jeffrey Epstein that continues after his death, in the sense that the files have not been released, in the sense that Ghislaine Maxwell, I mean, it makes sense as to why she didn't speak during the trial. She probably knew at the end of the day that she was going to be able to pull some card.
Well, I mean, the reality is you pull a card or you end up like Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, are you among those of us who do not believe that he died by his own hand?
Oh, yeah. I don't believe he died on his own. No.
Yeah,
I think he killed him. I think that he was killed. Absolutely. There are too many anomalies. There are too many strange occurrences that happened during this period of time. I also don't think, as a narcissist that he was, scribbling a note, no fun when asked what prison is like, that he truly believed that he wouldn't be able to pull a wild card and get out, just like he did before.
Yeah. I agree with you. I interviewed a gentleman when I was on my old show, AM Joy, on MSNBC, that said that he was literally talking to his attorneys about his defense and was feeling enthusiastic about taking the case to trial because he knew he had so much dirt that he seemed confident. The idea that he suddenly went from that to suicidal just doesn't make sense. But the other piece of it is you think about all the people who were involved, right? The person who actually cut the deal for him winds up with a sweet deal, a job inside the first Trump administration, gets a cabinet post out of it. You now have Pam Bondi, who said for a hot minute that she had the Epstein files on her desk. And then suddenly she's like, what desk? I don't have a desk. That's not a thing. And now she has forgotten about herself. Kash Patel, who used to say the FBI director is who has control of the Epstein files and can release them. He now is saying, I don't know what you're talking about. He seems to have forgotten. He literally said that on his own podcast and on Glenn Beck's podcast. Dan Bongino, who also made his name essentially calling for the Epstein files. The cover-up feels total. Have you been able to get into the why? Why are all of these people suddenly developing amnesia about how evil Jeffrey Epstein was and about whether these victims need justice?
I think it's pretty clear. It comes from the top. President of the United States does not want us to read the Epstein files for whatever reason. And by the way, like during the campaign, he was happy to use it against President Clinton in 2016. But when asked about it in 2024, he was like, yeah, we'll look into it. He wasn't one of those fervent Epstein files. It's going to release a cabal of, naughty Democrats and elites. Let's not forget that at the time when he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, a very close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, he was a Democrat. He was writing checks to Democrats. he was hanging out in Epstein's circle. I know he claims that he did not write that lewd card to Jeffrey for his 50th birthday, even though the estate handed it over to Congress after being subpoenaed. But he's mentioned not once, but twice in that birthday book, a birthday book to Jeffrey Epstein. So it's really hard to not see why all of these people are completely flipping around. I think it's just, this is the mandate from the top. There is something in there that Donald Trump does not want the world to see.
Yeah.
And that's what we're getting.
And the reality is, I mean, if you all will recall, Donald Trump was so much of a Democrat. The Clintons, Bill and Hillary, went to his wedding to Melania. Like, they were at the wedding. You know what I mean? This is somebody who was playing in Democratic circles. He was popular among Hollywood liberals. He was hanging out with on the left. I mean, I remember interviewing Uncle Luke about all the rappers that were hanging out in his house at Mar-a-Lago, going to parties there. Donald Trump was partying with Diddy. He's known the diddler for a really long time. So Donald Trump was on the other side.
Daddy. He called him.
He still calls him Puff Daddy. Well, I mean, he is Puff Daddy, right? We're not going to change his name just because he said. Listen, they said they don't want to recognize when trans people change their names. I recognize nothing. You're still Puff Daddy. It's still the Gulf of Mexico. This is how I roll. Let's talk a little bit about the financial angle of it, because we now find out that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel had pending potential meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, or maybe to go to Epstein Island to meet with him. That does not imply they were going to do anything. I'm not implying that, but there definitely was some sort of a connection being made between these tech oligarchs. And you can also throw in Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. Does this story and Steve Bannon, are we seeing this story morph into a story that's not just about the predation of Jeffrey Epstein, but about a global kind of, a network of oligarchs around him, and where the money is a bigger part of the story?
I think the money has always been a part of the story. I think the money has been central. I think this was a massive crime operation. It was a sex trafficking operation. It was a honeypot scheme. You have to remember that Jeffrey Epstein used to brag to people that he would consult Vladimir Putin. And he used a lot of the same kind of KGB type schemes, where he would bring powerful, wealthy men to a remote location where they would be, surrounded by beautiful young women, and it would be a bacchanal type experience. And Jeffrey Epstein suddenly had something on you that would cause a lot of social embarrassment, and he could use that. And that might be, hey, Mark Rowan, I want you to give me over $100 million to manage as your accountant. Right? A hedge fund guy from Apollo needs Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
Didn't even graduate from college and got fired as a math teacher to manage his money. There's always been a money angle in all of this. He was a hyper fixer. I mean, it's just very classic. I remember one time when I was covering the World Economic Forum for, I think it was Politico at the time. And I remember I went to Oleg Deripaska's party. He's an oligarch. And I was in shock to see all of these scantily clad women all over the place around these CEOs and executives. And they were dancing on them. And I'm thinking to myself, this place must just have cameras all over it. And they are just hoping to trap one of these men, one of these very powerful men. And Jeffrey Epstein essentially did that. Whether he said it or not, I think once you spent some time with Jeffrey Epstein, you knew that this guy had some dirt on you. And these guys liked it. And you even saw from Jess Staley, who was the CEO of JP Morgan, not CEO of JP Morgan, he was a senior leadership, like executive level, vice president level, who allowed Jeffrey to bank there after he was a registered sex offender, and really vouch for him, that when Jess was pushed out of JP Morgan, Jeffrey helped make sure that he got a job at Chase. And, he was really instrumental in actually operating in these worlds to make sure that these guys, to open doors for these people. That's why I say he's a hyper fixer. He really knew how to make himself indispensable to these men. And you can see it in the emails. But on top of that, when asked, what would you like, Beauty and the Beast or Snow White? He could also provide that as well. And we know from emails that Jess Staley was in Epstein's hot tub when sending him emails at the Zorro Ranch. And yet he was allowed to just role in these very elite circles. It laundered his name and his reputation, and it really allowed him to continue to live a life that a sex offender, any other type of person from a lower class in society would never be treated that way.
And I would
welcome back.
Absolutely. I mean, he was a big patron to Harvard. Alan Dershowitz was hanging out with them and saying, well, he was just getting massages from people who are not fully nude. Whatever he says, we don't know. We don't know what he did. Two more quick questions. One question, the international side of it, the Israel of it specifically, because a former prime minister of Israel is also named among the people who was ensnared in Jeffrey Epstein's web. Does Israel, do you have any reporting that suggests that Israel is holding on to any kompromat that could have been obtained from Jeffrey Epstein that might give them undue influence over Donald Trump?
I don't. I really don't. I have just anecdotal, threads that I've heard here and there. Obviously, he was friends with Ehud Barak. And when Ehud Barak, who was the former foreign minister in Israel, he would stay at Epstein's apartment and in his condos that he owned in the Upper East Side. And so he was very close with his wife, Daphne, as well. And he, according to, Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony, he was also friends with her father, Robert Maxwell, who was a known Mossad agent. Mm-hmm. We also know, and who was buried at the Mount of Olives, by the way, in Israel after he mysteriously died off the side of his boat, the Lady Ghislaine. So, his partner in his modeling agency, MC Squared, Epstein's partner, Jean-Luc Brunel, also died mysteriously in a jail cell by hanging. Question mark. Now, I don't know if this all goes back to Israel. I know from some reporting by an independent journalist in Alaska that Ghislaine Maxwell used to brag about her ex who was Mossad. I mean, she didn't say specifically that it was Jeffrey Epstein, but there are a lot of reasons to believe that he may not have only been helping Israel, but maybe even MI6. Maybe we know for a fact that he was an informant on a major Ponzi scheme. He helped the FBI on multiple occasions on the Financial Towers case. He was a partner in this Ponzi scheme, but his partner went down, Stephen Hoffenberg, for this $300 million Ponzi scheme. And, he went on to be an informant in another financial case. So he understood how to play both sides of the law. I see him as almost a Whitey Bulger figure. And I question if that's why he got these sweetheart deals, because he was helpful to U.S. intelligence. I'm not saying he was a spy. I'm not saying they ran him, but I wonder if he had information that they found to be useful. And if that was part of it.
Last question, exit question. If in fact, at some point, the Speaker of the House has to reopen the House of Representatives. He can't keep it closed forever. And when that inevitably happens and they have to swear in Adelita Grijalva and that 218 vote, that vote comes up again, do you have any reporting that suggests that any of the four Republicans who are right now being intensely pressured with primary threats against them, I'm sure with threats against them, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's continuing to say she's going to read the Epstein files from the floor if she has to, who's gone, completely off the ranch when it comes to the things that she's saying about this and some other stuff. Any reporting that says those four won't hold together and that any of the four will break? That's Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, some of the four, the worst of the worst, and also the gentleman from Kentucky, Massey. Any of them going to break?
I don't think that Thomas Massey will break. This is his thing. This is his bill. He's a co-sponsor. This is his baby. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is very dug in. I think she likes also the spotlight on her. Mm-hmm. I think Lauren Boebert is a bit of a YOLO place. I think she'll probably say, I think the one to watch is Nancy Mace. And the reason I say that is even though she was emotionally affected by it, she left the conference after hearing from the survivors and was weeping. But she does want to run for governor in South Carolina. And she needs that Trump endorsement. Is that going to be the thing that stops the Epstein files from being released?
And she's a survivor herself of sexual assault, which is pretty wild to think that she would play ball with this administration that is this regime was trying to keep the Epstein files secret. Tara Palmeri, it's a Tara Palmeri show. You guys are going to want to definitely get involved in that. You're going to want to pick that up. You're going to want to watch it. You're going to want to subscribe to it. Also, The Red Letter, which is a hard-hitting newsletter about power, politics, and the people who shape both. Subscribe to all of Tara's things because she's brilliant. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, Tara. Thank you so much for being here.
You.
Thank you. All right. A round of applause, Jason, if you would, for Tara Palmeri. She's a good one. She's very smart.
That was another episode of the Tara Palmeri Show. Thank you again for tuning in. Without you, I couldn't be here. To support my independent journalism, please go to tarapalmeri.com and sign up for the Red Letter, where you can get all of my exclusive reporting straight to your inbox. It's also a way to support my independent journalism and to keep this going. If you like this show, please subscribe, rate it, share it with your friends. I want to thank my producer, Eric Abinate. I want to thank Adam Stewart, who does my graphics, and Abby Baker, who handles my social media and research. See you again tomorrow.